Hey everyone. Professor JR, is there anything you need to cover before I jump in?
Um, Not specifically, just as a reminder, this is, well, I guess I'll just make a few announcements. As a reminder, this is the last instructional class. After this, we have the practice. So hopefully everyone's been working on their presentations and have things going for their end of course. Uh, so today would be perfecting communications, and then after this will be the practice class on Thursday, and then the end of course final presentations will be next week, Tuesday. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to my wife, teacher Latoya. Well, that's what they call you in Chinatown. Miss Latoya Dawkins.
Hi everyone. Good evening. Thank you for turning on your cameras. So great to have you this evening. As Professor JR shared, my name is Latoya Dawkins. I will be your instructor for our class today. So let me just share my screen so we could just jump right in. Professor JR, I think you're sharing your sound, so I might just take over your screen for a little bit. So tonight's class is perfecting communication through presentations. And I'll share a little bit about myself. I currently work at Rutgers University. I am a CQI supervisor, which means that I support a team of about 18 contracted trainers who train on various topics in the field of early childhood. So curriculum, child development, screenings. So I've been doing that for about 4.5 years. I am a wife. I am a mom of two boys. This is a picture that we took when my family and I went to the Jacob Javits car show last year. So we like to do fun things like that. Both of my degrees are in education. So I got a early childhood degree as well as a curriculum and instruction degree. My master's is in that. And then I also have gotten some certificates and other training, I guess certificates over the years just based on the work that I do at Rutgers. So I have a certificate in child and adolescent mental health. Where I work at the Rutgers University, I'm out of the School of Social Work, so I was able to get that certificate there. I also facilitate trainings on trauma-informed practices as well as protective factors. So that has to do with strengthening families. I'm very involved in my church. I'm a youth leader. I'm a Sunday school teacher. I sing on our praise and worship team. I love, love, love to read. I love interior decorating and crafting. I have a Cricut, if you know what that is. And so I like to do fun stuff like that. And so, as I shared a little bit about my background, as you may have heard, I present a lot. I was actually thinking about as I was preparing for today, like how many times I've presented like nationally, like at a national conference. With my work at Rutgers, I've presented 4 times, presented twice last year, and then a year the year before that, and then, I mean once a year before that, and then once a year before that. So I've done about 4 of those, and then like I said, I train and I support trainers who train. So this idea behind perfecting communications through presentations is something that I know well. I don't believe I'm a master at it. You may hear me say ums and so's and things like that, which we're going to support each other and help each other not say those filler words. I feel like it's an area that's really just fun to learn and grow in, how to be a better communicator and how to get your point across. So, with that, I would love to learn a little bit more about you and who you are. So, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So, I see we have, I want to make sure I say your names correctly. Summer. Okay. Hi, Summer.
Hi,
Hi, good evening. Thanks for being here.
thank you. Um,
Evan. Hi, Evan. Thanks for being here.
uh,
Hello. Hi, Roxy.
Hello, I apologize. I'm getting my background set up. I have a lot of stuff here.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for being here. Nabiha, is that how I say it?
Yeah, Nabiha, hi.
Hi, Nabiha. Thank you for being here. And Jasang, is that how you say it?
It's Jason, but hi.
Jason. Okay,
Yeah.
nice to see you. Hi, Isaac. Great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Hello.
Hi. Okay. All right. So awesome, awesome, awesome. Nice to meet you all. So I'm gonna share, we're gonna do like a Mentimeter. I want to just do something fun because we'll be in Mentimeter a little bit tonight, and it'll provide an opportunity for you to get used to using it. So I'm gonna put the link in the chat. Go ahead and click on the link, and then I will start us off with the first question. Let me know if you have any issues getting in. All right, so what are you looking forward to this summer? Vacation, okay. Going anywhere fun? By summer, do you mean warm weather? What are you looking forward to? Gym? Okay. Gym in terms of like going to the gym? So, or internship. I'm looking forward to go on a cruise, find a job, prepare for college, and just have fun. Yeah, that sounds like fun and a lot. New interactions, a job, getting off school, sleeping in, also going on vacation, relaxing finally. Oh, my sister's quince. Very cool. Very, very cool. All right. Well, thank you all for doing that. So let me just exit out of here and we'll jump back in. All right. So let's do a quick feelings check. Let me know how you're feeling. Could put it in the chat or you can unmute, whatever works best. Okay, I see some answers coming in. Happy. All right, Isaac. Sleepy. Yes. I I'm not sleepy myself, but I'm not feeling 100%, so I'm definitely looking forward to some cozy sheets. All. Okay, a combination of feelings. Okay, I get that. All right, well, thank you all for responding. You can continue to put things in the chat. Um, So this is our proprietary statement. I'm sure that you're familiar with this by now as you're in advance, and this is the last instructional class. This basically just says that anything shared today can't be shared or reused, and we're sharing this for informational purposes for your ability to learn and grow more about the topic. Um, so let's jump into the objective. So what are we going to be doing together today? So we're going to apply appropriate communication skills across settings, purposes, and audiences. We're going to demonstrate effective use of technology and other platforms to present information. We're going to talk about how we use our body language and eye contact to convey a particular message. We're going to identify how to use language effectively to promote your brand, product, or service. And we're going to articulate information in a concise and meaningful manner. Okay? All right, so communication is the act of sharing information from one person to another or a group of people. And so today we're going to spend some time talking about the different types of communication that will help you as you begin to prepare your presentations, right? Because in the fundamentals, you did your pitches, but for this one, you're doing a full presentation. So slide deck. Those who are going to be assessing you are going to pay attention to your cadence, the way that you speak, the way that you communicate, where your camera is positioned, how clear and concise you are, eye contact, all the things. And so those are the things that we're going to be talking about today. So I would like to just find out a little bit more about you. So I'm going to just ask for one more time for us to go back into Mentimeter and share if you've ever did any kind of public speaking or presentation with a slide deck. And I'll put the link in the chat for those of you who might have just joined so you can participate. Okay, so I got one yes so far. Okay, we're up to three yeses. Okay. So that's good. So I want to learn a little bit more about that experience for those of you who have presented before. And we can talk about tips and strategies and things that you've noticed about doing that. It is quite the fear for a lot of people to do public speaking. So we'll talk about that as well. All right, so this is actually a video that I'm going to show you all. So just bear with me as I just want to make sure I'm sharing my sound.
Plankton can't stop what's growing in the office fridge.
My eyes are watering.
We hear it, but we don't see it.
Oh,
So
Yeah,
But we can help you grow in your career.
I'm gonna reshare now. I was waiting for the skip button to come up too.
LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
All right, so I'll stop sharing. I would love to hear feedback. First up, I would love to know, are you familiar with The Office? Has anyone ever seen the show The Office?
Yes.
Okay. Do you like it, Roxy? I saw you smile as soon as
I
I put.
love The Office.
Oh, then okay. So a woman after my own heart, a young woman after my own heart. Yeah, I love The Office. I love the humor. It's a nice way to kind of break away from, the day-to-day grind. But I want to hear your feedback about how he presented. Anything you noticed, good, bad, indifferent? I'd love to hear some feedback.
It was really different and it was crazy, but the message like still went through and that's all that really matters.
It was quite crazy. Yes, absolutely. The message went through, I hope. I was wondering when I watched that video initially, like, what are they? Do they know what they're clapping to, or are they just feeding off of his energy, right? Anyone else?
I noticed how he kind of changed his tone of where he was speaking, like, I made emphasis on a few words.
Yeah, absolutely. What about his body language?
He was slamming at the podium over and over again.
Yeah, slamming at the podium. Yeah, so I definitely don't want you to mimic Dwight. But I like to show that video just to show all of the different ways that people can get buy-in when they communicate. And then some of the things that we might want to avoid. Yeah, the body language made it persuasive, right? Because again, I'm thinking, do they know what they're cheering for? They were like clapping their hands like, okay, like he seems like he's really passionate about what he's talking about. Let's support him. Um, but then there are things that I feel like, we could learn for growth for Dwight in terms of like he was doing a lot of reading, right? His head was down. Um, body language, he was quite intense. His message wasn't that clear and concise. Again, we don't really know what he was talking about. So just some things to keep in mind. So Roxy put in the chat, your energy reflects in the room, and the more confident he got, the more confident the audience got too. Absolutely. Very, very passionate. So we want to talk about that today. We'll touch on a lot of those different pieces about how to really make what you're presenting shine through your content, shine through your body language, and then shine through your technology, what you're actually using to present. All right, so let's go back into our slide deck for today. Hi, Stephanie. We have a few folks who joined us. I believe Stephanie, I didn't get to wave at you earlier. And then Miss Rosie's on. Hi, Miss Rosie. Caroline C. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, so why are communication skills important? So why are they important? So communication skills are essential to the workplace. It's a starting point not only for relationships with colleagues, but also in establishing work goals and expectations. And a simple misunderstanding, like a missed word, too many words, can be the reason that you might miss a deadline or admit an important task from a shared project or something, your team was depending on you for. So it's very, very essential in the workplace. It is a high demand skill, so strong verbal and written communication skills are always in demand in the marketplace. So to be a good communicator can communicate, no pun intended, that you're easier to work with, you're a valuable team player, and you're less likely to drop the ball on big projects. Career prospects, being able to participate with skill in all forms of communication, so verbal, written, nonverbal, and visual, which is what we'll cover today, is important to getting a job and advancing in your career. So let's look at these four types of communication and we'll dive in a little bit more today into them. But I just want to briefly share we have verbal. So we'll be talking about what you can do in terms of when you verbally communicate using a strong, confident speaking voice, using active listening skills, avoiding those filler words, those ums, those so's, those yeah. Avoid industry jargon when appropriate. So in my field, there's certain things I might say like, oh, developmentally appropriate practice or different things like that, where if you're not in my field, you might not necessarily know what I'm talking about. And so while it may communicate expertise, it may not be clear to the audience that you might be speaking to. So we'll talk a little bit about industry jargon. Nonverbal, notice how your emotions feel physically. Be intentional about your nonverbal communication and mimic nonverbal communications that you find effective. We'll dive into that and we'll talk a lot about body language. Visual, we're going to take a look at some visuals that current top companies use to communicate their mission statements and their brand. And then we're going to talk about written language. So a lot of that you would have dived into in your, I guess, your resume building class as well as your business writing class. And we'll look at how current companies may use that type of communication as well. All right, so let's hop back over to Mentimeter because now that we've gone over those different types of communication, I want you to respond to If you can put in order which of these type of communications feel most challenging to least challenging. So I put the Mentimeter link in the chat again. So go ahead and click on that link and let me know which one, put them in order of most challenging to least challenging. Okay, so far I'm seeing nonverbal communication is coming in as the most challenging. Okay, nonverbal still in the lead. We got 4 out of 8 responses. Now we got 5 out of 8 responses. I'll give it just a few more seconds and then we'll hop back into our presentation. Okay, so we're up to 7. So nonverbal communication is in the lead. Verbal communication is second, and then visual, and then written. So that's really important for me to know because it'll guide some of our conversation today. Would anyone like to come off mute and share why they think that nonverbal was top? I don't know if that's ever happened before. Why was nonverbal the I feel like in past classes that I've taught, it's been verbal. But would anyone like to share why they feel like for all of you nonverbal is the most challenging?
Because like you don't really understand what the person is like trying to say. Like the message will be like as clear as you need it to be compared to when it's like verbal. So it's
Mm,
like you may you may like misinterpret what the message is really about.
okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks so much, Summer. Roxy, what would you like to share?
I wanted to add on to that. It's also that when it comes to nonverbal communication, it's really just about like assumptions, and with assumptions, you can only get so far.
Okay, assumptions. And then Summer said it's harder to convey the message. Anyone else? This is great. Really great feedback. So yeah, I'll spend a bit more time on nonverbal and hopefully you'll feel a little bit better about it at the end of our time together today. Okay. So I want to spend a little time talking about questions to ask yourself. So throughout our presentation, all of these questions are going to remain very relevant. How do I sound? What does my body language say about me? Where am I looking? And can I read the room? So I want you to keep those things in mind. When I think about these questions, what stands out to me is really the 5 senses, right? Can you guys just start calling out the 5 senses? Just call them out. Let's hear them.
Smell, taste, sight, touch, hearing,
Okay. I think Roxy, did you do them all? Smell, taste, touch, hearing,
sight.
sight. There you go. Yeah, sight. Right? So when I think about these 4 questions, I feel like each one of them touch on those 5 senses. Touch may be a bit of a stretch, but I feel like it does have a lot to do with like where your hands are. Like right now, it has a lot to do like where your hands are and how you're moving your body. So keep those things in mind as we begin to talk about communication. So one of the things that I want to start off doing is get familiar with yourself. How do I sound? Was the first question, right? So, that needs to say summer. I want you to think about what you all shared in the beginning about something you're looking forward to doing this summer. I want you to turn your camera off, spend 1 minute recording yourself, And then I want you to spend another minute watching yourself talk about what you want to do in the summer. And then we're going to come back together. We're going to share what you noticed about how you communicate. Okay? Does everyone understand what we're doing? Can anyone come off mute and state the instructions back to me?
The instructions is that for 1 minute, we're gonna go off our cameras and then record ourselves, and then we're gonna have another minute to reflect, and then share when we're done.
Yep. So thanks so much, Roxy. So it's 2 minutes altogether. 1 minute to record, 1 minute to watch yourself, and then we'll come back and have some reflections about it. So your time starts now. I'll see you guys in 2 minutes. I'm going to ask you all to come on back so we can have some reflective discussions together. Welcome back. All right. So who would like to go first? Roxy, I see your hand up. Who would like to share their reflections about that recording, what they notice about themselves? Go ahead, Roxy.
For me, I noticed that when I'm on, like, I cut myself off as I speak. So I'll talk about one thing, then I'll stop, then I'll talk about another thing, then I'll go back to the previous thing, then I'll do another. And it's just like a really big cycle. That's something I noticed.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. You're being asked to come up with something on the spot. Would anyone else like to share maybe about like similar to Roxy, how it might have felt getting your words together, or maybe like your body language? Did you notice anything about your face or your expressions you didn't realize you did?
I kept smiling and giggling. I don't.
Yeah. That could be a good thing. I definitely have always been impressed by people who are able to talk with a smile. I think I have a pleasant face when I talk, but I don't know if I fully talk with a smile. I've always been really impressed by that. So that could be a good thing. The giggling, maybe not so much, depending on what you're talking about. But if you were advertising maybe for, I'm thinking like early childhood for like a children's program or something like that, then it might be fitting. Depends on the industry. Anyone else want to share? Evan, Stephanie, J Song, anybody want to share?
I could go.
Yes.
Um, I wasn't like looking directly at the camera. Like I kept looking away. I don't know, I felt like awkward just like looking at myself and talking.
Yeah, absolutely. So practicing is going to be really important, even if you don't do it in front of a mirror, but maybe you have your family members see you present. So even as you're preparing your presentation for next week, practice, 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 and present in front of others and ask them to give you some really good feedback about how you present. Say, I want feedback on all the things, my body language, what I look like, am I clear, all the things. And um, you'll have more an idea of like what feedback you'll be looking for by the time we're done today, but that's the top skill for presenting is practice, practice, practice. All right, so the first communication skill that we're going to spend a little time on is verbal communication. Verbal communication is the use of language to transfer information through speaking or through sign language. It is one of the most common types, often used during presentations or video conferences or phone calls, meetings, one-on-one conversations. I know that we're living in a high tech time where I have to be honest, I text more than I talk on the phone. Would anyone else agree? Would you raise your hand and say that that's true, that you text more than you talk on the phone? Roxy says no. Okay. Anyone else? Do you feel like you talk more on the phone or do you feel like you text? You could put it in the chat also. Hi, Kimberly. You could put in the chat, you could put I talk too fast to type it out. Okay. Yeah. So, we're living in a high-tech time. We have direct messages and all these other ways that we can communicate, but verbal communication is still the most common type when it comes to presenting video conferences and phone calls. So it's a really important skill. Verbal communication is important because it is efficient. It is the most efficient way to get your message across. So many things can be lost in email, as Summer and Roxy shared. Even sometimes your nonverbal communication can communicate something that maybe you don't want to communicate. But verbal communication is the most efficient. So it can be helpful to support verbal communication with nonverbal communication and with written communication, but you want to make sure that your verbal communication is top tier. So use a strong, confident speaking voice, especially when presenting information to a few or a group of people. Be sure to use a strong voice that folks can easily hear you. Be confident when you're speaking out your ideas. Be clear and easy for others to understand. Now, you might be saying, okay, like this is pretty elementary. Yeah, talk clear. When I tell you, I've seen a lot of presentations, it is not as easy as it sounds. I think when you're thinking of being with your peers or being in your class or with your family or somewhere where you feel comfortable, yeah, sure, verbal communication can be pretty easy, or maybe not, depending on your experiences. But when it comes to presenting information, when it comes to selling yourself or something, and you need to be clear and concise, or you have a career, you're speaking on behalf of your organization you work for, your team you work for, something you've created, it is a whole different level of verbal communication. So you want to be sure that you're speaking with confidence. Often, when I've observed scholars in previous classes, I would say confidence is the one thing that stands out about a scholar when they're presenting. If they're presenting with confidence, if their tone gives the message of like, I'm happy to be here, I'm passionate about what I'm talking about, because if they just like talk like this, like they really don't want to be here, like it really just, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't really shine through for your presentation, and you can be saying wonderful things, but that confidence, if it doesn't shine through, then a lot can be lost in your message. So active listening is on here as a skill for verbal communication overall. I wouldn't say you will utilize it too much in your presentations. However, at the end of your presentation, typically scholars will receive constructive feedback. So I would say that's where you want to use your active listening skill, really hearing what what the feedback is that you're receiving. And I would say it is a skill as you if you're thinking about a field of career or something like that. It does show that you're a good communicator in the way that you listen. You listen to folks, you give them eye contact, you respond, you nod, you show that you're actively listening to them. And then avoiding filler words. So it can be tempting, especially during a presentation, to use filler words, like so, yeah. While it might feel natural after completing a sentence or pausing to collect your thoughts, it can also be distracting for your audience. I have a trainer that I've worked with now for a few years, and she was getting feedback from someone else because she had did like a mock presentation, and the before the person gave feedback, she said, I know I do a lot of filler words. Me and Latoya are working on it. So it is a very hard skill, but it can be done. And the recommendation for it is to replace your filler words with a breath. If you take a breath, if you slow down before that, so yeah, like slips out, that tends to be one way that you can eliminate or avoid those filler words. All right, so nonverbal communication. There is a video here on nonverbal communication. Let me just get that up here.
Ah, the sweet sound of selling and earning on Vinted. Don't wear it, sell it.
Repeat after me. I choose joy today.
Nature Made Gummy Vitamins, a delightful way to take care.
Did you ever hear anyone tell you that 90% of communication is nonverbal? Now, as a broadcaster, you will be communicating verbally most of the time, but once you are on TV or on camera, you will have to rely on your body language or your facial expressions to deliver the emotion of your message. If you're delivering a serious story, you probably don't want to be smiling, would you? If you're delivering a happy story, you probably won't want to be too serious either. There are all sorts of ways to practice this, but looking in a mirror can be a big help. Can you raise one eyebrow? It's still one skill I have to work on myself. But by changing your facial expression, you can set the tone for your story without ever saying a word. Another habit you should try to break is not to move your shoulders when you talk or report on camera. Now, you can allow your head to move naturally, as if you are talking to your best friend. If you want to make sure your audience gets your message, don't be afraid to lean forward and look right down the center of that camera lens. Remember, eye contact is how you maintain your connection to your audience. Send me some examples of your happy face, sad face, confused, amazed, befuddled, excited, surprised. And if you are delivering a negative message like, "There's no school today," you can always shake your head. There's no school today. Or when it's positive, subtle nods work well too. These are just a few tricks to the trade that can help you become a better communicator on camera and in real life. Good luck.
All right. Any reflections from the video? I know that um, nonverbal came up as a top challenge for you all. Was there anything in the video that seemed helpful or like a good reminder or refresher?
So,
Like,
oh,
oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry, you can go.
I was gonna say to hold your like put your shoulders down because I feel like I'm always really tense. So that for me is always like a reminder.
Yeah, thanks, Roxy.
I was gonna say like that like body language goes with like the type of thing you're trying to say. So if you're trying to say something like sad, like your tone also and your body language, like it can reflect like the type of thing you're trying to say.
Absolutely, Evan. I definitely agree. And I think when we get into talking about storytelling a little bit later in terms of like how you present, how you start a really good presentation, that storytelling will be more impactful because of the inflection in your tone, right? Your voice going up, your voice going down. You're really excited about something, or you're talking about something that's really hard and serious. So, absolutely, 100%. Your tone, your appearance, your facial expressions should match what you're talking about. And it should feel natural, not stiff or anything like that. Um, have you all seen TED Talks? Have you ever seen like a TED Talk on YouTube or something like that? I'm always amazed by how they storytell and how they can really draw you in, even if they're talking about something light or something heavy. They really have the skill to kind of draw in their audience. I'm sure they did a whole lot of practicing. All right, so notice how your emotions feel physically. So, in order to notice how your emotions feel physically, you have to be in your body. And so, what that means is you have to pause and recognize what is happening in your body. Um, I like to do this intentionally. I like to slow down. I like to Breathe, take a breath. So you want to make sure how your emotions feel physically so it doesn't come forward in the way that you present and communicate. Be intentional about your nonverbal communication. So how he talked about, nodding your head. There's other skills that where people talk about even eye contact. So like if you're in a big room, you want to zoom in and out of your eye contact. So if you're talking like this in person in a presentation, so you're make sure you're constantly scanning and it almost gives the appearance that you're making an eye, connecting eyes with everyone in your audience. So you want to be really intentional about your nonverbal communication. He talked about keeping your shoulders still. If you're a hand talker, you want to be sure that your hands are not a distraction from what you're trying to convey. And then I know that Summer mentioned the hard part about nonverbal communication is that it's hard to tell what the message is, right? And so I always give this example that if I'm on Zoom, which I am all the time, every day, or Teams. Um, if I'm on Zoom and I'm in a meeting and I'm like this, right? What is this communicating to you if I'm in a Zoom meeting or a
You're
Teams?
bored.
Bored, tired, I need a cup of coffee. It's the end of the day. This could have been an email, all the things. But if I'm resting my hand here, what is this communicating to you now?
You're intrigued, relaxed, and engaged, but like in a more calmer way.
Yeah, absolutely. So even a smooth placement of your hand centimeters from your face, right, in different places can convey a different message. So I 100% agree. I know that Roxy shared that folks can make assumptions about you based on your body language. And so they may think, oh, her voice is a little shaky. Maybe she doesn't really know what she's talking about, or his eye contact is a little scarce. I guess he is not really comfortable with speaking to us today, right? It can convey or it can send a message that you're not necessarily trying to send. Mimicking nonverbal communications you find effective are a great way, is a great way to practice and get better at it. And so those TED Talks, if you know a really great communicator, I know that folks believe that Barack Obama is one of the greatest orators, presidents of our time. Perhaps watch a speech that he's delivered. How does he sound? Does he sound confident? Does he sound assured? Does he sound passionate, engaged, right? So find really good public speakers that you can mimic and see how it feels in your body. I wouldn't say mimic them where I'm watching Evan do his presentation. I'm like, oh, he sounds just like Barack Obama. I mean, I want it to be Evan. I want Evan to shine through in his presentation, but you can mimic folks who have really good skills. Trust me, no one reinvents the wheel in that regard. All right, visual communication. So this is a slide where we'll cover what some top brands like to convey through their visual communications, which is typically their logo. So as you start to think about your brand, if you are in the process of starting your business, thinking about a business, you really want to think about your logo and what your logo, the visual presentation of your logo, communicates to your consumers, to your customers. And so let's see, let's look at Google. So Google's mission statement says to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Do you feel like that shines through in their visual communication here, their brand?
I say yes because it's a really popular universal browser.
Okay. What about the brand, like the colors they use, the font? Does it convey That they organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful.
I would say yes, because the color scheme it kind of like lines up and it follows a certain pattern. Like the blue in Google, every like two other vowels, it lines up and adds another blue, which kind of shows that like any question you ask, the information will always be like relied the same, and that anything that comes afterwards just follows a certain pattern and it's like systematically choreographed to what you're needing or what the world asks for.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jay Song. Absolutely. It gives that clear tone of or being organized, right? And I love how he said like there's a system, there's structure, right? And Google has literally made itself 100% dependable for finding something. It's a verb. I will Google it, right? It's a verb. So 100%. Thank you. All right, let's look at Tesla. So Tesla says to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. How does that shine through in their brand?
I have a question. When you say brand, do you mean like the logo or do you mean the brand entirely?
The logo here. And if you wanted to shed some light about the brand entirely, yeah, if you want to share like about their cars or their robots. Yeah, sure.
Based off their logo, like the E and the A, they kind of have like dashes in between, which can like symbolize or like emphasize like electricity, as in like solar panels, where they're getting their energy from a different source instead of looking at earthly materials and killing other things to benefit from it. And their cars or like their products, they use rechargeable batteries, so you're not like going out killing other things in order to keep the business running. You kind of buy it once and just replug it with constant use without any worry.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jason. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like yeah, like you talked about the energy, right? Sustainable energy kind of shines through. You said like that visual of like the solar panels, how they kind of get like maybe like their energy source is sustainable, right? You automatically think about that with solar paneling. I also think about like accelerate, right? So that E in Tesla is not even complete. It's not even, right? There's no line on the side, but you know it's an E, right? So it goes beyond even our maybe our comprehension, if you will. So excellent. All right, let's do one more. Let's see. Well, you guys choose. Which one would you like to dive into? I'll take any vote.
Can we do Starbucks?
Okay. So Starbucks says to inspire and nurture the human spirit one person and one cup at a time. How does that shine through in their logo or brand, whichever one you'd like to the visual aspects of their brand? How does to inspire and nurture the human spirit one person and one cup at a time shine through?
I would say for the nurturing part, the color green, like as like people view that as like a lot of nature stuff, and then just a person being there and like a spirit to me, like the person there really kind of like shows like for me at least when I look at the logo, I see like someone like an actual spirit.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I forget the name of this, but it actually is supposed to be representing some type of goddess. And I forget what she's called, but yeah, and like there is some history behind that particular image. But yes, absolutely, 100% agree that colors really do impact what you're trying to convey visually about your brand, right? There's like this earthy tone to like that green. There's like this just inspiration, right? Inspired, nurture. There's something comforting and calming about the color green. And we could say that about any of the colors here, right? Like Google, we talked about like how there's like a pattern to their colors, but also universally, that's captured through the rainbow, right? All the colors in the rainbow. We think about Tesla, that red, that gives like energy. Red is psychologically conveying energy. It also is a good food psychology. They use a lot of red, right? Think about all the food brands you may love. Domino's, McDonald's, Chick-fil-A. They all use like a red and a yellow because the psychology of that brand color is to make you hungry and to make you think about food, right? And so spa, if you go to a spa, popular spa brands, they're going to use some more earthy tones and colors. So yeah, your colors definitely communicate something about your brand. So, written brand language. Okay, so this is, thinking about certain things that you can communicate through your brand language. So, we have simple, emotional, aspirational, unusual, connectable, open, and twistable. So, we just finished talking about Starbucks. So, I'm going to draw your attention to unusual. So, Starbucks has their own coffee size, right? I can't go to Starbucks and ask for a small. I have to ask for a tall. I can't go to Starbucks and ask for a medium. I have to ask for a grande, right? They literally have their own size. So these are distinctive words that are used less frequent, but it sticks out because it's connected to the brand. Okay. Do you have any examples of anything else that might be connected to a brand that's unusual? Anything that you've experienced? Yeah, that's a hard one. I feel like a lot of brands do it in maybe more subtle ways. Like I think about Microsoft is Excel, but Google is Sheets, right? So it's like it's the same thing, but it's connected to the brand. I think about PowerPoint, slide, slides, Google Slides, right? So there's all these different ways that um, brands make what they're providing as a service or a tool connected to their brand. All right, let's think about open brand language. So if I say like a good neighbor, what would you say back to me?
State Farm is there.
State Farm is there. So that's some open-ended language, right? So if you're building your brand language, it brings depth to the brand because it can mean multiple things or apply in different a variety of situations. So every single commercial about State Farm is going to end that way. They're going to show you different situations where, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Let's look at, let's see, simple. Right? So simple. What brand is Just Do It?
Nike.
Nike. What brand is You're in Good Hands?
Isn't it L'Oreal?
That's, well, I won't say it just yet. Anyone know what it is? That's Allstate. You're in good hands. All right, let's look at connectable. So we have McDonald's, right? Mc, McRib. I don't even know if that exists anymore. McDouble, right? Everything's Mc or Apple, everything's I. So there's a presentation I'm going to show you a little bit later where one of the previous scholars actually built in some of this connectable language into her brand, and it was fantastic. So that might be something you might want to explore. So we have emotional, impactful language that really appeals to the emotions. So be all that you can be. When you care enough to send the very best. I'd rather fight than switch. So there's all different types of ways we can promote our brand language. So just remember that brand language is the body of words, phrases, and terms that you and your business can use to describe your purpose or reference the products, is used in marketing to help consumers connect to your brand specific words or ideas. And then when developing a brand language, word choice and tone are the two fundamental components. So word choice and tone. What are the words that are going to convey what your brand is trying to say? And what is the tone, right? Simple, connectable, in your brand language. And so tone is not limited to language, but it is a part of it. So you want to incorporate, tie in all those different things. You want to tie in your verbal, your not your verbal, sorry, your visual. I was thinking of a different V word. So your visual and your written language, you want to tie those both in, which is why in the previous slide, when we looked at the brands, the visual tied into what they wrote, their mission statement. So those types of communications are going to be a little bit married to each other. All right, so how to start a presentation, how to start a presentation. So you do want to focus on your why. You want to tell a story. And so I'm going to share this video with you, and then we'll reflect a little bit, and then we'll go on our 10-minute break, okay?
You, just you, building your app on base 44. Describe.
It always strikes me how people think about their presentations or how they prepare their presentations. And I'm actually talking about the first words, the first sentences of a presentation. What most people do is they think of a presentation, so automatically you think about a PowerPoint. So you make your slides. You look at your slides and you think about what will I say showing each slide. But my question to you is this. What are your first words? What are the first sentences? Very few people think about that. Just think a minute about the presentations that you have already seen in the past, maybe the presentations that you have done yourself. There is a cliché sentence that most speakers use to introduce their topic. They say something like, good morning, good afternoon, my name is, if they don't know you. And then there is this typical sentence, today I'm going to talk to you about. Now you might say, so what's the problem? The problem with this sentence is that you're actually answering the wrong question. You're answering the what question. What are you going to do? I'm going to talk about. If you think about it, most audiences know what you're going to talk about. Either you are introduced, or there is a program, or there is a meeting, so there is an agenda, so people know what your topic is all about. The most interesting question to answer is the why question. Why are you there to talk about this topic? And even more important, why is it important for the audience to listen to you? So my advice for you is to focus on the why question. Now, how can you do that? I advise people to focus on a story to begin their presentation. Now, if you think about stories, stories begin with a time frame. Just look at fairy tales. They start with once upon a time. I'm not going to suggest that you start your professional presentation with once upon a time, but you can start with a time frame, something like yesterday, 2 weeks ago, last year, 3 months ago. Now, what's the kind of story that you can share then? Use real stories. It has to be something that happened to you. It has to be something that you heard. So you can refer to a conversation you had with a colleague. You can say something like, yesterday I had a conversation with, but then there has to be a reason why you referred to that conversation. And there is this linking sentence that I use in lots of presentations. I tell my story, and then I continue saying, now why do I tell you this? Because my objective or my goal with this presentation is to. So what you can do is be very conscious of the company stories, I might say. It can be something that happened with a customer. It can be an article you read. It can be something that you heard about. It can be a conversation you had. So use these stories to begin your presentation, link them to your goal, and it will be so much more interesting for your audience because it will be crystal clear for them from the very first minute why it is important to them. So next time you prepare your presentation, focus on that why question and tell them a story.
All right. So some quick wrap up reflections from that video would be moving away from your what to your why, right? And so a really good presentation is going to start with your why. So yesterday, a week ago, a year ago, post COVID, right? Where did the inspiration of this business start? So you're going to share that why, that timeline, give a time frame, right? And then you want to tell your story, right? Take folks down your story. And then after that, you can, you know, now why do I tell you this? You can go into that. You can nicely introduce yourself. And then you move into your core message. Introduce your brand, introduce your product, introduce your services, introduce yourself. If you're doing like I don't know, a self presentation or something like that. But that is the flow that you want to stick with, right? So you have focusing on your why, your time frame, what happened, why are we here? Why are we talking about this? You tell your story and then you come with your objectives, right? Now, why do I tell you this? I'm here to share with you about my brand, blah, 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 right? The objectives of your brand. My brand, Cozy Reads, as we'll talk about later, is a way to connect you and your community to books in a collective way to share ideas and thoughts and to experience the wonders of knowledge and fantasy together as a community, right? So it's a really nice flow. It draws your audience in. And so when you think about the other communications, type of communications that we talked about, where we talk about your verbal communication, your nonverbal communication, that's where that's really going to shine when you're starting your presentation and bringing your audience in and you're telling that story. Okay. All right, so let's go on our break. Let's have a nice smooth end. So come on back at 7:50 and then we'll pick up and we'll jump right back in. So see you soon. So we can jump back in.
Whatever.
Sorry, what was that?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to unmute.
Oh, no, no worries, Evan. All right, welcome back. So we finished strong. Thank you for your participation and doing the exercises and engaging with me. So I can welcome you to continue to do so as we go into I guess, the second half of our class for this evening. So now we're going to talk about how to end presentations. All right, so you nailed the beginning. You had a time frame, you gave your why, you told your story, you gave your objectives. We know who you are, we know what you're talking about. And so you want to end your presentation. So we have, really helped scholars with, you don't want a cliche ending. You really want your ending to grab your audience. You want your ending to show that you care. So you don't want to end with something like, and so, yeah, that's my presentation, right? You want to really get that ending strong. Okay. So, start and end with the same strong statement, the same strong tone. Make good use of the intonation of your voice. And so, again, if you're telling a story, your story is going to have a beginning, a middle, and the end, right? So you want to make sure that your tone, the inflection in your tone reflects that. So maybe at the end of your presentation, you're toning it down and maybe you're slowing it down. If your presentation started with a lot of energy, maybe that energy is decreasing the further you go, right? So you really want to pay attention to that. Or maybe your energy is building up, right? Maybe what you shared in the beginning was a little heavy, right? So you needed to like take your time, really get through it. But maybe As you're talking about, there's something you can do. You could donate, you can get involved, you can support, right? Maybe your tone and your inflection is picking up. So you want to think about those things. And if you don't have anything to say, the safest thing you can say is thank you. Okay? That's the safest thing that you can say. So we talked about the four types so far. We talked about the four types of communication. We talked about how to start your presentation, and we talked about how to end your presentation. So really that meat, that middle is what you did in your pitch, right? That's where you talked about yourself, you introduced yourself, talked about your brand, talked about your product, talked about your services, how much it costs, the call to action. So you have that, right? You have that. So now you want to work on that 3 to 5 minute presentation with the slide deck with a strong beginning and a strong end. Does anyone have any questions about the beginning or the end of your presentation? I see some heads up, head nods, some no's. Okay. All right, so how do you make a good PowerPoint presentation? So you want to think about what does your audience already know, right? You don't want to give them information they already know or they don't need. Um, I'm like being silly about it, but like something like, oh, New Jersey is a state in the United States, like I don't know, like just you don't want to give your audience something that they already know. You want new information that you can teach them, show them, inform them about. What are they expecting from your presentation, right? Thinking about your audience, what are they looking to gain, to walk away with? What's going to be interesting to them? What will keep them focused and engaged, right? So I know in my line of work in early childhood, if you think about the field, right, we're talking about health, we're talking about safety, we're talking about child development, we're talking about outcomes, positive outcomes, we're talking about family support, partnerships with the families, community resources, right? Those are all things that I know that if I was in an early childhood room with early childhood professionals, those are things that they want to hear about, right? So think about your audience, whatever your brand is, whatever your business is, think about what that audience would want to hear and put that into your presentation, put that into your PowerPoint. Make sure your words, brand language, visual communication, all of that includes that. All right, so 10 tips to making world-class presentations. So know your audience. We talked about that. Understand them, connect with them, tell a story. We talked about that. Stories connect better than hard data. That is true. So in the beginning, maybe you start off with your story, but data also tells a story. So it's not that data can't be a story. It's just that hard data, if you're just spitting out numbers, that's not going to be as impactful. But if your data tells a story, so why am I sharing this data? So why am I showing you why, there's so many homeless people in California, right? So you want to make sure that your data tells a story. Convey one idea per slide. Too much info confuses your audience, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next slide, about what you want to have on your slides. Use visuals. We are hardwired to remember visuals better. So that's no surprise. It's why Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and all these things are so impactful for the user, is because we like to consume visuals, right? If there was a social media company that just had post after post after post, I feel like those type of things are starting to dwindle out, right? People want to see things. Infographics are becoming very popular. So you don't want to have visual clutter. So you want to perform a noise audit on your slides. So make sure your slides don't have too much on it. Your slide should not look like a report. Okay. All right. So keep it simple. Okay. So you don't, your slides, you want to avoid jargon. We talked about jargon. So a lot of industry terms. You don't want your slides to kind of be a way to, it says it on here to like to show off, but like really it's just about those jargon terms. You want to use terms that are like understandable to your audience. Investing your skills, so learn from presenters in action. So again, if you want to take some tips on maybe how you've observed the SOAR instructors present to you, or maybe you have a teacher thing and you're like, man, like whenever my teacher brings up a slide, like she nails it, he nails it, right? So you want to think about that. Avoid death by PowerPoint. I literally had this happen to me the other day. I don't know why, but I was presenting at an office hour, and it was kind of like a training. And my presenter view with my notes just would not show up. I unshared, reshared, just wouldn't show up. Eventually, it just popped up out of nowhere. I don't know why, but you want to avoid death by PowerPoint. So, what does that mean? Practice without your slides. So, if you are going to an in-person a presentation with a slide deck, wonderful. But know your presentation. If you lose your speaker notes or if your deck doesn't work, you want to be able to still do your presentation without needing to lean on your PowerPoint. You are the main event, not your slide deck. Okay. It's very important. You want to make sure your visuals looks great. You want to make sure you don't have a whole bunch of clutter on your slides, but folks are coming to hear you. All right. So provide a clear call to action. Okay. So again, that's the meat of your presentation. That would have been in your pitch class. So you're introducing yourself, you're introducing your brand, services, or products, and you're going to give your audience a way to connect with you. All right. So you really want to um, keep that in mind. And then there's this bottom area here, anticipate objection and prepare proofs to address them. So maybe there's something about your brand where you might be thinking, "Oh, if I tell them that we're going to feed um the underserved youth in Elizabeth, New Jersey, they might want to know where that money's coming from, right? So you want to also think about in your presentation, what are some anticipated questions that people may ask about your brand and about your business? And make sure your presentation, to the best of your ability, answers that. But again, if you have that call to action, then you could say, if you have any questions, if you want to learn more about us, go here, call me here, check out this website. All right, so the sixth rule in presentation, this is called 10-20-30. I've heard it 4-4-4, all different types of ways. But basically, you want 6 words per line. If you're doing a presentation and maybe you're going to focus more heavily on visuals, and that's great. But if you're going to have a slide with words, you want 6 words per line. So what does that mean? If I had a bulleted slide, on each bullet line, I have 6 words. And then I have 6 bullets per slide. I don't have any more than 6 bullets. And then I have 6 slides with heavy text. After that heavy text on those 6 slides, I'm moving on to a visual, right? And so that's to just break up heavy content. So if you're presenting, you don't want more than 6 slides with just words. You want to have some visuals there. And I would say you should throw in as much visuals as reasonably and feasibly possible. So not too much clutter, but for example, if I'm doing a presentation on early childhood, I might have 3 bullets on my slide with a nice little picture of 2 little babies playing together in an infant room, or I might have a teacher sitting on the floor with toddlers, right? So you want to make sure that you break up so much text. So there are a lot of different presentation platforms, PowerPoint, Mentimeter. Even today, what I use with you all to have you respond, Mentimeter has it where if I wanted to build in a slide deck, I could. Canva, I'm sure you're all aware of Canva. We've had a lot of scholars in the past use Canva. For the most part, their free side of Canva is really wonderful. So you could do a whole lot in Canva. They have templates that you can use for your presentation. Google Slides, free, right? If you have a Google Slide account, excuse me, a Google account, you could do that. And then just for, your own reference, if you were doing a virtual meeting, Zoom, Google Meets, WebEx, Teams, those are the most popular ones. If you incorporated a poll, they have Poll Everywhere, Zoom polls, Loom. And then this year I added Notebook LLM. I'm going to be showing you Notebook LLM actually prepared a presentation for me. It's in a beta state, this new feature on Notebook LLM. And so I'll show you a little bit of what that looks like. It does give you the ability to edit it, but I just wanted to make sure you had all the resources available to you. Of course, with anything AI, so LLM is an AI tool. Rutgers uses it. I can access it through my Scarlet email address. And so it does provide now an opportunity for you to take a prompt and ask it to create a slide deck for you. So I want to be really transparent about like AI resources that you have available to you. Most AI platforms will do it now. ChatGPT, Claude, as well as I'm missing one, Copilot. Um, so I'm pretty impressed by Notebook LLM because it is designed for the student, meaning if you give it the documents, it will create for you. So I'll show you what that looks like. I actually have it here up on my screen. So what I did was I put in a prompt for our presentation here together today about presenting using perfecting communications through presentations. And I gave it my objectives. And then what it did was it collected all of these sources on the side here. And then it kind of gave feedback. So these sources collectively provide a comprehensive guide to delivering impactful presentations by blending technical proficiency with interpersonal communication. And experts emphasize visual simplicity, recommending specific formatting constraints like 10, 20, 30, 666 rules to prevent information overload on slides. Strategic body language and consistent eye contact are highlighted as essential tools for establishing authority and rapport in both physical and digital environments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play uh oh, actually it took me to the end. Let me see if I can go back here. Okay, so this is the very beginning of this Notebook LLM AI produced slide deck. I did not edit it. This is it in its raw form, but if you were to download it into PowerPoint, you would be able to edit it to really meet your needs, right? So with AI, you always want to be ethical, responsible. You want to give it full human oversight because I'll tell you, you'll see some quirkiness on the slides. There are words that are not spelled correctly. I don't even know if they're words at all. So you definitely don't want to present robot work. You want your work to reflect and represent who you are. But if you needed to ideate, if you needed to think through ideas, I think that AI could be helpful, used ethically and responsibly. Um, One last point that I'll share about AI is I actually did a presentation on effective AI at a conference at the Yukon conference in Maryland last year. And my colleague who presented on the ethical use of AI gave a really great analogy on if we think about data centers, every time you put in an AI prompt, anything AI to do for you is like pouring out a bottle of water. So if you're thinking about the environment and how to be environmentally aware, that's a lot, right? And if everyone in the world was just using AI all the time, that's a lot. So you want to be ethical in your use of it. So even when we presented at this conference last year, we wanted to demo prompts, but we recorded ourselves demoing prompts because we didn't want to put in a prompt as we're preparing our presentation and then get to the presentation and put in a prompt. So even ethical use of how you use AI is really important. So today I thought like, oh, I'll do it with them live in class so they can see it. But then I was like, I want to be ethical. If I do it now and I practice it and then I do it again later, then I've poured out 2 bottles of water. So that's just something to think about for ethical use of AI. Engineering the perfect pitch, a masterclass playbook for in-person visual presentations. So this first slide, it shows the anatomy of presentation failure. So it says 90% rejection rate is the rate of pitch decks by Silicon Valley venture capitalist before reaching slide 5. The 3 pillars of presentation mastery. So they have content design, the engineering of narrative, brand consistency, and cognitive slide formatting. Delivery, how you say it. So kinetic execution of body language and the psychology of eye contact. And then environment and technology, the infrastructure of AV, your hardware, lighting, and camera geometry. So it leans more into like in person, but I would say your environment would be your slide deck arrangements, your visuals, your pictures, your colors, things like that. So here's some of the quirkiness, right? So like there's some words on here that are not spelled correctly. So, you know, as I said, human oversight. Here's that return on investment, ROI, your 666 compliance. When you maintain the 6 words per bullet, 6 bullets per slide, and 6 text heavy slides. 10 to 15 minutes. So this is your outline of a 20-minute narrative arc, but it really does line up with a 3 to 5 minute presentation. So your logo, branding, and presentation affiliation, um, telling your story, notifying, sharing who you are, what your brand is, your outline, your core body, your conclusion, and then how they can get in touch with you. Persuasive architecture of the message, so tripling group arguments in threes for structural integrity. So this one gets a little like wordy, so we don't have to spend too much time on this. So yeah, you get the idea. Notebook LLM is an AI tool that you could possibly use. So let's get back into it. So I'll just show you what I did was I clicked on Create Notebook, and then I typed in my prompt in here. And then if you want, you can drop in your files. And then it does other things like, video, and there's a lot of other options. But for the purposes of your presentation, you want to stick with the slide deck. But again, don't put yourself in a bind if you got grammatical errors and non-existing words. You want to definitely give it oversight. All right, so now we're going to look at this video, which is an example. We'll look at someone presenting and kind of look at the before and after.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Public Speaking. Today's first presenter is Ranjit, and I would ask everyone to give him their full attention. Chantal, could you dim the lights, please?
The British imposed a lot of unpopular taxes on the American colonists and didn't let them elect representatives to the British government. In retaliation, the Americans started to boycott British goods. In 1773, Americans in Massachusetts dumped a shipload of British tea into Boston Harbor. This became known as the Boston Tea Party. As punishment, the British imposed laws known as the Intolerable Acts, including the Quartering Act, which made Americans let British soldiers live in their homes. Some of the American colonies created a Declaration of Rights and Grievances, which they sent to Britain, but the British just sent soldiers to the colonies to put down any rebellion. This led to the first battles of the Revolution at Lexington and Concord.
Thank you, Ranjit. I know it's very hard to give a presentation in front of the entire class. Now, would anyone like to offer Ranjit constructive?
All right, so before the class gives some constructive feedback to him, would anyone like to share what they noticed about Ranjit's presentation? Maybe some constructive criticism that you could give to the way that he presented?
He was like stuttering a lot and looking at his notes and just like reading off his notes instead of like giving like eye contact and like speaking confidently.
Yes, Evan, absolutely. Thank you.
He had the
He
same
sounded
tone.
more, sorry. He sounded more like a robot,
Mm.
like AI-ish or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's funny. I feel like, yeah, we might start saying that someone sounds more like AI than they sound like themselves. Go ahead, Roxy.
I was gonna say, yeah, they had like the same exact tone from beginning to end.
Yeah, right? You really don't um understand the impact of inflection in your tone until you hear someone or see someone speaking in a monotone way, you know? So, yeah, it moves you out of the robotic, the just, computerized spitting out information into human, right? Humans want to connect with humans, right? So you want to make sure that's seen in your tone. Thank you all for sharing that. So let's look at what the feedback is for Ranjit from his peers. Oop, think I'm sharing the wrong thing.
Feedback about his presentation. Any tips for what he might do differently next time? For example, were you all able to hear what Ranjit was saying?
Not really. He needs to speak louder and face the audience.
Yes. Great suggestion. Anyone else?
He was reading from his paper, so it didn't feel like he was really talking to us, you know?
Exactly. It's important when you're speaking to look up every sentence or two and make eye contact with someone in the audience. Anything else that Ranjit could do to appear more relaxed and feel more confident?
He could smile more.
Yes, smiling makes us feel relaxed. Oh, and make sure your phone is off before you speak next time. I do have one more suggestion. To connect with listeners, it's a great idea to use a personal story or experience as an example. Can you try that next time?
I think so, yes. Next week, my presentation will be about the causes and effects of stress.
We look forward to hearing it. Ranjit is first up again today, and I look forward to his new presentation. Jorge, could you dim the lights, please?
So as Ranjit comes up, I want you to look at what he did differently, and we'll talk about the comparatives between the before and after he got the feedback.
Good morning. Today I'd like to talk about the causes and effects of stress and how to cope with stress. Stress has many causes, including work or school, life events, changes, or unrealistic expectations of yourself. Some effects of stress include headaches, trouble sleeping, depression, or lack of concentration. I know how hard it can be to deal with stress. Last year, I started working after school to save for college, but I didn't have time to do homework and my grades went down. I had trouble sleeping, I only ate junk food, and I stopped hanging out with my friends. Fortunately, I was able to talk with a school counselor to manage my stress. She suggested that I reduce my hours at my job, eat healthy foods, and get some exercise. So I literally started walking home from school and bringing my lunch. I also asked my teachers for extra help. Now, I feel better. It's important to recognize when you're stressed and to ask for help. Thank you.
All right, anyone want to share some feedback or some differences they noticed between how Ranjit presented before and how he presented afterwards? I'd love to hear from some folks. Thank you, Roxy. You've been wonderful tonight. And I'll definitely have you go first since you raised your hand first. And then after that, I'd love to hear from some folks we have not heard from much this evening. So go ahead, Roxy, take it away.
I was just gonna say he looks like more confident in general when he walked up there. Like you already knew he was ready.
Yeah, absolutely. How could you tell that he looked more confident? What did you notice in his body language?
In his body language, he wasn't like stirring or like moving as much. He was calm, and I feel like, because I feel like when you said that your shoulders like they make that big of a difference, I was like, I feel like that's an exaggeration, but you could tell like how much more stable and how much more like just calm he was and more confident in himself he was.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Go ahead, Evan.
I also feel like he was just like his tone was just more confident, and he also like the professor told him like he related it to something like a personal experience, and he was also like talking to the crowd instead of just like reading from his paper.
Yeah, absolutely. Not reading from the papers, giving eye contact. Let's see. How about Summer or Kimberly, Isaac? What about the presentation behind him? What do you notice about what we talked about just recently about presentations and slide decks?
Not too cluttered.
Oh, I didn't catch that, Summer.
Not too cluttered. Like, wait, could
Yes.
you hear me?
Yep. Yes, I
Okay.
hear you now. Not too cluttered. Yeah, I didn't catch you the first time. Thank you, Summer. Yes, not too cluttered, right? Simple. Coping with stress. Ask for help. Minimize stress-causing factors. Get enough sleep. There's no report here. There's no five paragraphs on the slide, right? So the image is not overwhelming. So you want to simplify your slide decks. You want to convey one idea per your slide deck and, no more than 6 bullets on your slide with no more than 6 words per bullet, right? So yes, absolutely. Much, much, much improved. And I just realized I'm talking to you about a slide you can't see. So this was the slide I was referring to. No clutter. All right, so let's jump back into our slide deck. So, 7 tips to improve your presentation skills. Record yourself communicating. Learn to manage your emotions. So, recording yourself communicating, we did that. That was the first thing we did. You know how to do it. You can do that in anything you're preparing for. So, whether you're working on a group project, or you're going to give a speech, maybe some of you are graduating soon, you're going to have words at a party or something like that. You can use all of those times as an opportunity to record yourself, practice, and prepare. Learn to manage your emotions. Learn to manage your emotions. So, good communicators build skills that help them control their reactions and react appropriately. You feel your heart beating fast. You feel your mouth getting dry. You feel the brain fog coming on, all different types of things happen in your body. So you want to be aware of that and you want to prepare for that. You want to do some coping skills, think things that help you feel more calm and confident. You know your brand, you know what you're talking about. So if you're practicing, if you're recording yourself and you're practicing what you're talking about, it won't be a problem. Why you're talking about it won't be a problem. It's going to be that how, which is how you show up in your body. So you want to make sure you pay attention to that. Improve your nonverbal communication. What are your hands doing? Where are your eyes looking? Right? What's your message, your body language? What message is that conveying? Prioritize soft skill development. So soft skill development, that eye contact, right? I've heard a lot of people say like people sometimes won't even invest in your brand if they don't think you're a nice person. If they don't think you're a good person, right? So you want to make sure your best self shines through. Be receptive to feedback. So after you present, your peers, the board of directors, instructors, they're going to be providing feedback. So be ready to receive that feedback, be ready to take notes. This is the one skill that can set you apart from colleagues, peers in your future. You get to college, you go on college interviews, If you don't know how to speak and communicate, people won't get to know you for who you are. So it is a skill worth learning in every aspect of life. Communicate clearly and regularly, right? So even I've done this where I don't know if people love it, but like sometimes if I'm like in a Target and like I'm making small talk, maybe at the cash register or something, I might call the person by their name because I see their name tag, or I'm always practicing eye contact. And no matter what type of communication interaction I'm having, I'm always practicing like how am I, actively listening. So there's so many opportunities to practice communicating well. You don't have to wait for a presentation. You could just do it in your everyday daily life. So these are the types of communications that we went over today: verbal, nonverbal, visual, and written. Any questions about verbal, nonverbal, visual, or written? Anything you need me to clarify or go over? Nope, I see some head nods. All right, well, that concludes the end of our time together. You all have been wonderful. I wanted to spend maybe our last few minutes together. If you all can tell me how you're feeling about your presentation next week, if you were to put it into one word in the chat, how are you feeling about it? Or you can come off mute, whatever works best. Nervous, excited, happy, intimidated. Okay, Evan's feeling a little nervous. What are you feeling nervous about? Thanks, Professor J. What are you feeling nervous about, Evan, if you don't mind sharing?
Kind of just like how I'm gonna present it. So I feel like sometimes when I present, I like stumble over my words, and I kind of just like forget what I'm saying.
Yeah, is there anything you heard tonight that you might incorporate to prevent that stumbling?
Basically like trying to do things to like calm myself down. So like basically just like remember what I'm saying, and like also I say like filler words sometimes. So just like taking a breath instead of saying like the filler word.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds good. Looks like you got some really good tips and strategies to help you. Absolutely. Yeah, and that practice, right? The more you do it, the more comfortable you feel in what you're communicating. So, Roxy, you're feeling anxious. Anything you heard today that might help or anything you're thinking about?
Just the recording of my voice, because I feel like something that I definitely do struggle with is when I'm speaking, I try to say everything all at once to get it out there to know that I said it, but most of the time not even half of it is heard. So just making sure I slow down my voice and like I'm actually conscious of what I'm saying rather than using filler words.
Yeah. I can relate so much to that. I feel like where I tend to, and maybe not if I'm presenting, right? I have notes, I've practiced it, but I feel like if I'm like sharing an idea at work, I tend to think out loud. And so after I'm done word vomiting, I'm like, I hope my message got across because I just thought out loud. So yeah, I definitely can agree. You want to make sure you're clear and concise, that your thoughts are not becoming your presentation, but that your presentation is your presentation. Anyone else? I'm assuming if you haven't responded, you're feeling good and you're ready. So I 100% support you in that. Yeah, so remember, you got your strong beginning, right? You're going to give that time frame, tell a story, give the meat of your presentation, introduce yourself, introduce your brand, give a call to action, and then end strong, right? End with a message, end with what you want folks to do. Thank you, Miss Rosie. Yes, start strong, finish stronger. Absolutely. All right. Well, the survey's in the chat. Go ahead and fill out the survey, and then I guess, Professor J, have you been doing a D when you're done with the survey? What letter would you like them to put in the chat when they're done?
Yeah, we've been doing a D.
All
D for
right.
done. And Thursday we have the practice session. So definitely encourage everyone to join on Thursday to, do a couple practice runs, work out some of the nerves, get some feedback so that you will be a little sharper on Tuesday.
Yeah, and I would echo Professor J, maybe come with a few slides filled out, get some feedback, right? Find out if you're moving in the right direction or are you getting a little too wordy, a little too cluttered, right? So I would utilize Thursday, capitalize on an opportunity to get your feedback so that way Tuesday you're fully squared away. I'm sure you all are trying to be top scholar, right? I'm sure there's some top scholars in the room. Roxy saying yes. So yeah, use every opportunity to get all the help you can get.
Cool. After you are done, you guys are free to drop. We'll see you on Thursday.
Kimberly, if you want to hang on, I can answer your question. So I would say your speaker notes are where your over explaining should land, right? You want to keep your slides as simple as possible.
Great job, Professor Latoya. Thank you so much for this amazing class. I sat in and I'm packing, but I'm listening as well. Great job as always. Have a great night, everybody, and we will see you back on Thursday, where we will also have our Mentimeter for tonight's class.
They all
They
dropped, Rosie.
they all gone, Rosie.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, so we could, I can't see anything. I'm just talking.